Welcome to TradeTheNBI.com. This is John. This report is for the 26th of June. And you can see that we ended up with a nice little recovery. We dipped a little bit further, popped back up. Nothing shocking. It's interesting, though, that we do have the cyan moving above green on this dip, as well as the potential of it rising here now above, and well, it already is visually now, above red. Be interesting to see if we do close with our cyan candle or not. Because that will at least be something that would abate any kind of retrace. And oftentimes when you get this cross, it takes a couple of days, and usually you get a little spike up before it happens. That's relevant because we do have our daily setups, which bought at the discount, and nice bump on there, and brings you back up to the original one there. Now, complementary to that was our good friend the 50K, which bought right down here on the dip. Now, because it is the deep red, we're expecting that more likely than not probably get some portion of retrace back down to that low before the next signal. This was a good one because we didn't dip below the red line when we came down to it and popped back up above. Nice rise of the red. It took out this previous pivot right there, which is where the second buy took place, and has continued to escalate above there. Do have the cyan moving back above, so we should be experiencing a little bit of weakness within this, but reset of the green below red and a new crossover would be another buy configuration. We'll see if that happens right back there. But this was a fun play intraday and was definitely worth taking a nice 10-point gain plus with it. In fact, we look at the 5K real quick since we're already here. And here we go for the 5K. Actually, if I step back just a couple, you can see the day starts there. We ended up dipping on the dip, took advantage of that. It was a nice little move as it came and crossed over. This is where we pointed out the buys coming in at the start of the morning. And I did post those for everyone to be able to capture the nice little discount that was building. That would be a nice pop. And sure enough, the pop came through, just kind of went flat across. And then it continued for the remainder of the day. It was pretty straightforward once it got started. So no difficulties with that one, and taking advantage of the nice move. It corresponded obviously with the 50K, getting a little bit of a discount to the 50K, meant an entry that was somewhere in the 38 range. So it was well over a 10-point move on just a simple signal. So turning back to our daily, we will continue to monitor this because it'd be interesting to see if we get the steel moving back out of the safety zone. That would be problematic at that particular point, and then we would expect to see a pivot of red above the previous low pivot, which is at 0. So it needs to happen now if bulls are going to stay in charge of the current configuration. Looking at the NQ from its standpoint, likewise the same. Actually, it's a little bit closer to that crossover. As you can see, the cyan is here almost moving above the green, and that's just pointing to increase in the number of shorts pushing into the setup. The fact also you've got a decline in the steel, but as soon as that pivots with green, you're going to see rising factor. This was all about red for the NQ, holding it up, and that is still in charge at this particular point. Hasn't changed. The weakness that we saw in the YM from earlier continues, and you're going to get that again critical spot here where you have this low. If it takes out the low, then I expect us to break down a little bit below these previous lows. So it's got to turn around pretty quick here soon. Keep that one in mind. Looks decent from the extreme histogram on down, so there's no real craziness as far as that goes. USO doing fine within that setup, but it's the safety zone holding it up. Despite the fact you now have bearish cross on all of it, so I would expect a little more weakness coming out of USO from that standpoint. TLT, likewise bull move. We've had the continuation of once the red took out the previous range by getting above that 750, boom, it took off from there. Almost overbought at this particular point, though. Not uncommon. It had already retested all the lows that it needed to. Gold, from its standpoint, still looking decent. In fact, it's longer term from all the way back at our little dot fractal, which got blown away very quickly to the upside off of the cyan buy signal, and boom. Euro, slight positive edge to there with the rising red, but increased strength in the cyan, I would expect that we're going to see some weakness coming out of the euro here in the next couple of days. Be good to watch that for interim signals. Some of the basic stocks, AIG continuing its modest decline, rolling really deep there on that steel. It's an interesting one to have it rolled that far. It's pretty much retraced now. The full positive extreme. I'll just go ahead and mark that right here. There we go. So the positive extreme low, 54.84. So right there. No problem with that one. X continuing its little move, though we would expect that it's going to just soften up a little bit here as the steel breaks down below all the key elements. CLF, unfortunately, still looking weak. Nothing too special from that one. We've been following WLT. It started its little breakdown. We were looking for a new buy setup to come in. And it did with the little cross setup there. Having dipped below the red line, though, we would expect that low to be retraced. And now deep red, so we would expect it's going to come back down to that level. Let's take a look at the radar screen. Start with our high flyers from the bottom, working our way back up. A little bit different. And as I get closer, I've made some adjustments to the algorithms that can be put on the radar screen, and for next month we'll probably even begin to see the change take place on the radar screen, where it will have all the DOC readings in detail, which will be nice because that will just be a mirror of what you see from the charts, and it should make it a little easier to see what the values are for their configurations, and that will also add to the ease of understanding. Take a look at some of our alert babies. So we've been in deep red for Apple, just waiting for the turnaround buy. We're now well below the red line here, so it's just a matter, we've got improvement for the steel, even though cyan was rising. We just need to see a pivot for the greens, ready to turn around and make the move to the upside. So no real issues with that. It's retraced. Well, we got positive extremes going all the way back to here, have now been retraced. So a healthy chunk of them. Doesn't mean that we can't get a little bit more now that we're below the red line here. But going to be looking for that first pivot and the first green pivot there, because this should be a decent turnaround when it takes place. Like that. Amazon just kind of floundering and nothing, still within the bullish side, and we talked about that the other day. When they get sort of flatline like that, there's not a whole lot you can do. Baidu, we had the nice cross with the bullish push from the steel as well as green combo together at the same time. Cyan dips below all of them, and now we've taken out that peak here. 347 is what we need, and we're at 394. So that breakout above the red should propel Baidu even further. FAS had been somewhat of our benchmark for knowing whether we were going to maintain a healthy move, and still looks good, despite we've got some lower movement from the red and all that. The fact that cyan is staying below red and white as well as the green, all good signs, though you're starting to get your series of lower pivots. So it's going to take pop from any one of these, the steel or the green coming back up, to give it a boost. Facebook had been kind of floundering for a bit. It had the nice green crossover back over here, and boom, continued that pop along with it. Google had been also within a semi-buy, sort of the week with the negative red, but then when it crossed the green over the cyan, and then cyan completely dipped below as well, so that was an added bonus to it, and responded nicely to that. Little overbought within the configuration, but with that cyan moving below red and white, you've got a nice little push. We've had nothing but nice things to say for PCLN. I mean, PCLN Netflix. PCLN's next. PCLN had actually been a little bit on the weaker side of things. We had gotten the buy signals. We were a little cautious with it because we kept seeing the cyan move forward. And even though you get these kind of little bounces, it seems dramatic when something moves up, dramatically $17+. It's not a huge move in that sense, because we do have Cyan picking up on that move, which is a positive. So it can bounce around for quite a while, even pop up a little bit before realizing that next down leg. Tesla had been in good shape from the breakout way back over here at 203 and continues to make the march. Twitter had just been a slow, steady incline. Now we've got our first sign of weakness here with the cyan moving above green and also above the red and above zero. So all of those combined, right on the borderline here with steel at the safety zone. So would I see more choppiness with Twitter? Potentially, yeah. I would be up to my magenta stop as well, just keeping a little tighter line on it as you follow it along. So there you have it. Preparing the indicators for next month, so should have all that starting to get ready, because month ends right at the beginning of next week, if I'm not mistaken, and so I want to be ready for all of that. Continue to look for me though on StockTwits. Actually, I was on there the other day, and private Twitter feed, posting some of the various setups that are going on. Just because we should expect things to start getting a little more active as we get into the end of the month. And July Notorious at the beginning of it is really a fun period where we often get some pretty decent market moves. So we want to be poised for that as it happens. As always, talk again tomorrow. Take care.